Most people think that staying warm while sleeping is all about having modern comforts. They believe that a heated home, a thick blanket, and a soft mattress are all they need for a good night's rest. But even with all that, many still wake up in the middle of the night feeling cold. Their feet are freezing, and the warmth they expected seems to disappear just when they need it most. Now let's go back 1,000 years to the heart of a Scandinavian winter. Outside, the world is frozen. Snow covers the land. The air is bitterly cold. Inside a Viking longhouse, there are no heaters. There is no electricity. The roof is made from mud and grass. The walls are built from wood and earth. And yet, the family sleeping inside is not just surviving. They are sleeping peacefully through the night. This wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. The Vikings had a deep understanding of warmth that we've forgotten. They didn't try to heat their homes the way we do. They focused on something much more effective. They found a way to keep the human body warm, even when everything around them was frozen. And once you see how they did it, you'll understand why modern heating struggles to keep you comfortable and what you can do about it. Your bedroom is probably around 200 square feet. But when you go to sleep, you're using less than 10 square feet of that space. You're lying still, covered in blankets, occupying a single area. Yet your heating system treats every inch of the room the same. It pushes warm air into every corner, whether you're there or not. And even worse, that warm air doesn't stay where you need it. It rises. This is the problem with forced air heating. It's based on a system designed not for sleep, but for factories. Large buildings with tall ceilings, moving workers, and huge open areas. Bedrooms are small still, and used mostly for rest. Yet your system hasn't changed. You turn up the thermostat again. Your furnace runs longer. The ceiling gets warmer. Your bed? Not so much. In 2021, a Polish study found that radiant systems kept bedrooms 6 degrees warmer, on average, using 30% less energy. That's a huge difference. And it proves a key point. You don't need to heat your entire room. You need to heat the things touching you, your bed, your blankets, and your body. Vikings didn't have that problem. They didn't waste fuel on air. They built systems to warm the sleeper directly. And once you understand how they did it, you'll start to wonder, why did we ever change? Imagine a longhouse deep in the Scandinavian countryside. It's winter, and outside the temperature has dropped well below freezing. Snow piles high against the wooden walls. Wind howls through the forest. But inside, a Viking family is not huddled in misery. They're asleep. And more importantly, they're warm. Not because they had some ancient magic, not because they were tougher, but because they understood something we've forgotten. Heat should follow the person, not the space. In the Viking world, wasting heat was not an option. Every bit of firewood took time to chop and gather. Every ember was precious. They didn't have the luxury to heat large areas. Instead, they focused on creating warmth where it truly mattered, directly around the sleeping body. That was the strategy. Simple, effective, brilliant. To make this work, they used a combination of architecture, materials, biology, and tradition. First, the longhouse itself was designed to trap warmth. It was low to the ground. The roof was thick, made of overlapping layers of turf, which served as natural insulation. Walls were constructed from wood planks or stone, packed with moss to block cold drafts. Windows were minimal, sometimes just small slits that could be covered with cloth or animal hide. Inside, they didn't try to heat the whole room. Instead, they created microclimates. Sleeping areas were sectioned off, either with wooden dividers or thick fabric curtains. These small, enclosed zones trapped body heat. It wasn't luxurious, but it was strategic. Everything the Vikings did was about one thing: heat the person, not the air around them. And that's how they beat the cold, night after night. A Viking bed wasn't just a place to lie down. It was a thermal survival system built from instinct, tradition, and raw necessity. Every material, every layer, and every positioning of the body had a purpose. Let's walk through what that sleeping setup actually looked like on a typical winter night in a Viking household. The base of the bed was usually a wooden frame, lifted slightly off the cold ground. This wasn't just for comfort. The space beneath the bed prevented contact with the cold earth, which could quickly drain body heat through conduction. On top of the frame sat a mattress, but not the kind we're used to. Vikings filled large fabric sacks with straw, dried moss, or animal hair. These natural materials created air pockets that trapped heat and added insulation under the body. They also provided just enough softness to avoid the aches of sleeping on hard planks. Then came the layering. First, a linen or woolen undersheet. Then, thick wool blankets, sometimes as many as 3 or 4, stacked on top of one another. Fur pelts were added above those, especially reindeer or sheepskin, which are excellent at holding body heat. These layers created a warm envelope that surrounded the sleeper, trapping heat close to the body and keeping cold air out. Sleeping wasn't done alone. Families slept close together, often in a shared sleeping space or clustered in sleeping pods. This human clustering wasn't just cultural, it was thermal engineering. By sleeping side by side, each person's body contributed to the warmth of the group. Children were placed between parents or older siblings to benefit from adult body heat. Elders or infants, who struggled most with regulating temperature, were usually at the center of the group, shielded by the warmth of others. And then there were the heated stones, taken from the fire at the end of the evening meal. These stones were wrapped in cloth and strategically placed in the bedding, often near feet, backs, or under the covers. They released warmth for hours, acting as ancient heat batteries. This combination of materials, body placement, and pre-warmed objects turned a cold bed in a cold house into a personalized, self-sustaining heat system. Viking homes weren't just shelters from the cold. They were passive heating systems designed to maximize every bit of thermal energy they could produce. Even without knowledge of modern science or access to thermometers, the Vikings built smarter than we do today in many ways. Their longhouses were not random wooden cabins. They were deliberately structured to retain heat, reduce air movement, and concentrate warmth around the human body. Let's start with the most obvious feature: the turf roof. Viking roofs weren't made of simple wood shingles or thatch alone. They were constructed from layers of straw, moss, and thick sod, sometimes over a foot deep. These layers worked exactly like modern attic insulation. They slowed the loss of heat through the roof, which is where most warmth escapes in a house. Even wet turf had surprisingly strong insulation properties, especially when compacted and dried. In today's language, we'd call it high R-value construction, except it cost nothing and was made from whatever was nearby. The walls followed the same principles, built with timber frames and filled with packed earth, moss, or wattle and daub. Viking walls trapped warm air and blocked cold drafts. Spaces were deliberately kept small. Instead of large open rooms that are harder to heat, Viking longhouses had low ceilings and narrow interiors. This design forced heat downward and kept it close to the people inside. Small doors and tiny window openings reduced airflow and prevented precious heat from escaping. In the center of the home, a fire pit burned slowly through the evening. There was no chimney. Smoke exited through a hole in the roof, and that wasn't a design flaw. It was intentional. The smoke lingered in the upper areas of the room, forming a layer of warmer air that helped insulate the space. Meanwhile, the radiant heat from the fire warmed the stone floors and wooden walls, which slowly released that heat back into the room overnight. In some wealthier Viking homes or in certain monasteries, flat stones were placed around the fire to absorb and store heat. These stones acted like thermal batteries. Even after the fire burned out, they continued to radiate warmth for hours. This system required no automation, no electricity, and no moving parts. Just good planning, smart materials, and a deep understanding of how heat actually works. The Vikings didn't have scientific instruments, formal education in thermodynamics, or blueprints. But what they did have was a deep understanding of how heat behaves, passed down through generations by trial, error, and survival. Without ever hearing the words conduction, convection, or radiation, they had mastered all three. And that's why their systems worked, even without electricity. Convection is the process you rely on every day without realizing it. Your heater warms the air, and that warm air moves around your room. But air is unreliable. It moves too easily. It escapes under doors, out of windows, and up to the ceiling. It cools quickly and can't store heat. Vikings understood that relying on air was a losing game. That's why they ignored convection almost entirely. Instead, they focused on conduction and radiation. Conduction is heat transfer through touch. When you lie on a warm mattress or curl up next to another person, your body absorbs heat directly through surface contact. Vikings layered their beds with wool, fur, and straw to enhance this effect. These materials held warmth and transferred it directly to the body. Radiation is the third and most powerful method the Vikings used without knowing the name. When their wooden walls absorbed the fire's warmth, they released that energy slowly overnight. They built homes with thermal mass, stone, clay, dense turf, that didn't just block the cold, but held onto the heat like a battery. Today, most modern homes are built with drywall and fiberglass. These materials are light, cheap, and quick to install, but they lack thermal mass. They don't store heat. The moment your heater shuts off, your walls give you nothing back. But Viking homes kept giving warmth long after the fire burned out. They didn't know the math, but they knew the result, and that was enough to survive and sleep warm through the harshest winters in Europe. Sand, or ash beds. In some parts of northern Europe, people used to bury heated stones under a shallow layer of sand or ash beneath their bedding. The top layer acted as insulation, while the stones underneath radiated warmth all night. This method reduced the risk of burns compared to direct stone contact. Heat dry rice or sand in a cloth bag and use it as a longer-lasting heat pack. Layered clothing. Instead of just piling on thick layers, Vikings wore finely woven linen undergarments beneath wool. The linen wicked away moisture, keeping the skin dry and warm. Moisture control is critical for thermal comfort. Sleep in thermal base layers made of wool and breathable cotton rather than heavy clothing. Wool-wrapped sleeping. In wealthier Viking homes, sleeping benches were lined with wool-wrapped boards or mats. The wool acted as padding, but also as insulation between the body and the wooden frame, preventing heat loss downward. Add a wool mattress topper or even a folded wool blanket under your fitted sheet. Some Viking homes used animal hides treated with animal fat or oil and hung them over doors or windows. These acted like thick, windproof thermal curtains, preventing drafts from leaking into the sleeping space. Historical records show many people followed a segmented sleep pattern, sleeping for 4 to 5 hours, waking briefly, then sleeping again. During that waking period, people often retended the fire or reheated stones to boost overnight warmth. If Viking heating methods worked so well, why did we abandon them? The answer isn't about performance, it's about convenience and profit. In the 1800s, the Industrial Revolution brought with it new challenges and new solutions. Factories needed uniform temperatures to keep machinery working and products consistent. That's when centralized steam and forced air systems were born. These systems could push heat across large open spaces using ducts, vents, and fans. And they worked if your goal was to keep a factory running. But then came the mistake. Residential builders started using the same systems in homes, not because they were the best solution, but because they were the cheapest and easiest to install. A single furnace in the basement could heat an entire house through a network of vents. No more tending fires at 5 a.m. No more burning your hand on a bedpan full of hot coals. Instead of returning to smarter principles like radiant heat, thermal mass, and focused warming, we doubled down on air. We built homes with bigger rooms, taller ceilings, thinner walls, and more windows. And we forgot that warmth doesn't come from numbers on a thermostat, it comes from how and where heat is stored. You don't need to move into a Viking longhouse or build a turf roof to sleep like one. You can apply their same principles using simple, low-cost solutions in your modern bedroom. The goal is to stop heating the whole room and start heating the sleeper. Let's walk through exactly how you can do that tonight. Step 1. Preheat your bed. Before you lie down, insert a hot water bottle at the foot of your bed. Fill it with boiling water and place it under the covers 15 to 20 minutes before sleep. This mimics the heated stones Vikings used, providing a radiant heat source that lasts for hours. If you prefer something electric, use a heating pad set to medium for 15 minutes under your blanket. Just make sure to turn it off before you fall asleep. Step 2. Layer like a Viking. Replace your thick single comforter with multiple thinner blankets. Use a fleece or flannel sheet on the bottom, add 1 or 2 wool layers, and finish with a down comforter. Layering traps more heat because of the air pockets between each blanket, much like how Vikings stacked fur, wool, and straw. Step 3. Create a sleeping cocoon. Tuck your sheets and blankets in on 3 sides, both sides of the bed and the foot. This traps heat and prevents warm air from escaping during the night. Leave only the top side open so you can get in and out easily. Think of it as recreating the bed curtain system nobility used, only with modern materials. Step 4. Use thermal mass. If you have bricks, large stones, or even thick ceramic tiles, warm them near a heater for 30 minutes, then wrap them in towels and place them near your feet under the blankets. They'll release slow, radiant heat just like hearthstones in Viking homes. Step 5. Zone your heat. Close your bedroom door and let the room drop to 60 to 63 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 to 17 degrees Celsius. That may sound cold, but remember, you're not heating the room. You're heating the bed. If your bedding is warm enough and sealed well, you won't notice the cold air around you. You'll sleep deeply, just like the Vikings did, with focused warmth, not wasted energy. So tonight, try something different. Use a hot water bottle. Add an extra layer. Tuck your covers tight. Focus the warmth where it matters, on you. Because the Vikings didn't need electric blankets to sleep through snowstorms, they needed knowledge. And now, so do you. Sleep smart, sleep warm, sleep like a Viking.